Warning, spoilers ahead. None of the material about to be shared is owned by me. This video is made out of admiration and love for both the Karate Kid trilogy and the Netflix series Cobra Kai. Thank you. And
no mercy, bitches.
Hey everyone, my name is Andrew, and this is the glory of love for Cobra Kai. Today we're covering episode 5 of season 3 Cobra Kai, entitled Miyagi-Do. First off, we're led right into the back history with part 2. So we see the big fight between Chosen and Daniel, showing you all the beef that led up to their meeting today. And I love the scenes, and I especially liked how they added what I'm assuming are deleted or alternate takes, different angles, different shots that they added into the sequence that weren't originally in the film. But I have to say, I was disappointed with the lack of music. The soundtrack in part 2 is iconic. It really sets the tone, it sets the whole atmosphere for the scenes, and I don't know if it was a music right or they just chose to go differently to build more of a dramatic tension, but I just did not feel that same moment between part 2 the movie and this scene in the Cobra Kai series.
Live or die, man. Die. Live or die, man. Die.
Now, Robbie's storyline has been most of the better part lackluster. So him and Juvie, I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. We got the big fight between him and the guy that's been harassing him throughout the whole season so far. And the one thing I did like about that was it was the payoff. At least I hope it was the payoff, because I assumed that since they didn't rat on each other, that there's a common respect now, which they said. And so I'm hoping that storyline is done with and we can continue moving Robbie forward with what, I have no idea. But I think one of the avenues is Kreese. Now Kreese went to go visit Robbie and had that little chat with him. And it's same Kreese. It's Kreese 101. He's trying to just slowly instill his philosophies and his way of thinking into these kids. And he's been doing this since part 1, part 3, and so on. Interesting point between that conversation was the Vidal mention.
He made the quarters, but he drew a kid named Vidal. Now Vidal was a third-generation black belt.
Now Vidal is a guy that's seen very quickly in part 1 throughout the tournament, and unless you're paying attention, that's the only way you know it's Vidal based on the board and his name showing. But then there's a quick mention last season between Tommy and Johnny in that big camp scene before Tommy passes away, and they talk about Vidal.
Remember that tournament back in '83? You beat Vidal to get to the semis.
Yeah.
This is another mention of Vidal. Is it random? Most likely. If we're going to see Vidal, that's a real callback, and I don't see the payoff for that. But it's just a nice little nod to the character and to the mythology of the story. One of the biggest angles going right now is between the Cobra Kai students and the Miyagi-Do students. Right now, with no real sensei, because Kreese is not really instilling any mentorship upon them, and with Daniel gone, and we just see the Miyagi-Do students, rush in. They don't think anything through. They're just going, gut feeling, and it did not pay off for them. And there are multiple conflicts going on, but of course the top one is between Sam and Tori. Now, with Sam and Tori, there's another layer of, now Sam is suffering from this post-traumatic stress syndrome from dealing with Tori, which I didn't see coming. I thought she was handling herself well, but I guess not. And that's going to be a big part of the story, because especially after the big breakup with Dimitri and Hawk, and we saw Sam break down with her mom, and that was, this is far from over as far as dealing with this and facing Tori. I don't see happening unless she deals with this first. And now for Dimitri and Hawk. Oh man, I don't know what Hawk's up to. You can tell, there's a vicious break. You had Dimitri begging him to let go, saying it's me. But that peer pressure, that Cobra Kai peer pressure, forced Hawk into a situation he wasn't ready for, and he just snapped, literally and figuratively. He just snapped. But I think the payoff to that situation is Hawk is starting to realize now, this ain't right. I just broke my best friend's arm, and it wasn't something that happened later on. It happened right away. So I think that inner conflict between Hawk and his allegiance to Cobra Kai, it's weighing thin right now, and I think that's going to be a big factor. Where Dimitri goes, that could be a send-off for Dimitri for all I know, because broken arm, what else are you going to do? And I was talking about Sam, and I don't know, I don't like this role of her as the karate mom. I mean, as soon as the Cobra Kai's messed up with Chris, golf and stuff, he's quick on the texting to Sam, and Sam, answers him right away. And in the last episode, you had one of the students who got beat up after the car wash, and what they did, they all went to Sam. So it's like, this is weird leadership role she's assumed right now, and since Daniel isn't there, and she's not ready for that role whatsoever. And right now, between the students and the dojos, that's a big fight and a big, there's going to be big repercussions. And one of those was Amanda LaRusso confronting John Kreese. And if you look back at the series, not only the Cobra Kai series, but the Karate Kid trilogy, you never really had that real life conflict of a parent or a teacher or an authority figure. It's not like we ever saw Daniel's mom go to this Cobra Kai dojo and confront Kreese, who was Mr. Miyagi, with Daniel. So watching Amanda go in there, it throws a different wrench into the whole operation right now, because sure, Kreese likes to play along, and Kreese tried to play that line from part one.
You're a pushy little bastard, ain't you? But I like that. I like that.
You're a feisty one. But I like that. I like it.
She wasn't playing, and she slapped him hard and said next time for the cops. So it's this real life situation that's thrown into the mix. So it's like, well, they can't keep fighting. So that's another aspect of where we learn from there. Complete side note: what the F, Anthony LaRusso? This kid, talk about a growth spur. This kid, I thought was a different actor. I didn't even realize it. I mean, this is the same kid that we saw chugging butter, begging for pancakes and waffles, and I don't know where they're gonna go. I mean, he might be as sparse as he was in season 2, so it was just a shock to see Anthony, especially like that. And so now we have to talk about Johnny and Miguel, which is one of the other big relationships, and I like that they're back together. It almost feels like a season 1 vibe where the two of them are just, having fun, hanging out with each other. And I like the relationship being mended with Johnny and Carmen, because I feel that's the relationship route that Johnny's going to be going down. Because even though we saw Allie pop up, I don't believe Allie's going to be a love interest, because she's married. Much like how Kumiko did not play a love interest to Daniel, even though they had those awkward moments. She played more of the mentorship or the friendship, role of leading you forward. So I think that's the same relationship that Allie will have with Johnny when she eventually turns up, and whatever position she shows up. The biggest part of the episode, what I was looking forward to the most, especially with the cliffhanger from episode 4, was Daniel and Chosen. Now, I want to ask first off, Kumiko, why did you not give him a heads up? Did you not think this was going to be, worth knowing ahead of time? So that was a little weird. And for her to leave made more sense later on, but I do appreciate the relationship between Chosen and Daniel. It wasn't the route I saw it going down. I thought more animosity. I thought more of a Sato Miyagi ordeal from part 2. But the best part about that was the teachings that Sato had passed on to Chosen. Instead of holding on to that guilt, that anger, that feeling of losing his honor, you know, instead of wasting 30 years of his life, he was able to appreciate it more and not sulk in the loss to Daniel, not sulk in losing his honor. And him and Daniel coming together is like, you know, if you look back at all the beef that Daniel's had with different enemies, that was the biggest one. That was the life or death, literal life or death situation. And for them to mend and find that commonality between them and Miyagi-Do, and that even Daniel says it was
Karate cousin.
the training sequences I love. But I thought this was going to be like a few days, not a long time, but one day. That's a lot for one day. He started his day off having a drink with Kumiko, and he has all that training. Like, that was a lot for one day. But it was great. You know, we got a little throwback to Miyagi, telling stories about his teacher. We got a little thing about Miyagi's secrets, and I thought that was going to play off more. But that's more of Miyagi mentoring Daniel, and Daniel mentions it later on how he was protecting him in a sense, most likely, and not teaching him everything of Miyagi-Do. And that makes sense with Miyagi's situation, not to fully see confrontation as a method of fighting, and defense being more the role he taught Daniel. But another payoff from that was we had another callback, big callback, and that was in what I never knew her name, but her name is Yuna, who was the small girl in part 2 who Daniel rescued in the storm. And you know, that's another sweet callback to the film, but at the same time I feel it's a little like too easy. Like, it was the same way how I thought Johnny and Daniel found Robbie's van way too fast. Like, oh, at the gas station, it just happens to be here. Oh, Yuna just happens to be the car salesman VIP or VP that's gonna save Daniel's dealership. So it's like it seems a little too convenient, but what are you gonna do? You're literally halfway in now, so we have a full half chapter of this season to tell. And as much as I wish we had more Chosen and more Okinawa or more Kumiko, the small 2-3 episodes and a half that it played into, you know, they're gonna mean a lot. And I think one of those things especially is that scroll, to give him a scroll. And my favorite part of the whole episode was that line. He Chosen threw the line that he had in part 2 when he threw his shirt at Kumiko, and it was
You keep for your collection.
that was one of my favorite moments in the whole episode, I think. But very curious, you know, what's in the scroll. What is Daniel going to learn? He's still learning Miyagi-Do karate, which is, you know, you're always learning. It's like in life, you're always learning. So, you know, different pace to this episode than we have, but a lot of upbeat moments and a lot of, you know, growth, and, you know, a lot of roads still got to go down. And this is the glory of love for Cobra Kai, and I'll see you for the next one.